Every ecosystem obeys a natural fire regime. This means that wildfires will follow a naturally occurring pattern of frequency in which they occur. The eastern shore of Maryland has a fairly infrequent fire regime due to its unique ecosystems that thrive off of a complex river system along the Delmarva Peninsula. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the eastern shore's marshlands, maritime forest, and river ecosystems have provided a diverse landscape for a variety of native plant and animal species for decades. Since wildfires don't regularly break out on the shore, fire management teams have been using their own methods of burning to imitate this natural occurrence so that the ecosystems can thrive.
Historically on the Delmarva Peninsula, fires would burn naturally probably about every 7 to 10 years. And so for a long time people didn't let fires burn naturally, and that leads to a buildup of fuel wood on the forest floor, and then when you do have a fire it can be a lot bigger. And so most foresters now, fire management is a big part of their jobs now, and depending on where you are in the country, they try to have prescribed burns in areas that mimic the natural fire regime in those areas.
These man-made fires are known as prescribed or controlled burns. According to the National Fire and Aviation Management, prescribed burns can reduce hazardous fuels, recycle material back into the soil, remove invasive species from the environment, and much, much more. The eastern shore's marshland in particular is home to many native species that benefit from the frequency of these prescribed burns.
We have an awful lot of large grasses, and when the grasses grow really large, especially in the fall, they're very tough, and any of the new grasses that try to come up have to really fight their way through. So by burning the marshes and getting rid of all that top growth, and letting the ash settle down and compost, then that leaves basically not really exactly bare ground, but bare enough for the new grasses to come up so that they have all new foliage and it's not fighting with the old stiff foliage there.
In order to pull off these burns, it takes a large team of trained, experienced professionals to safely execute this process from beginning to end. Fire specialists have a large amount of planning to do before a burn can actually take place.
I write what's called a burn plan, which goes over what the weather conditions have to be in order to do the burn, how much help I need, where any sensitive areas are to smoke or any environmental areas, how many people I need. Then I come out with a bulldozer or whatever and put in the control lines in order to do the burn, and then just wait for the weather. And then when the weather's right, I send out and try to get the crew together and come out and pull the burn off.
The weather plays the biggest role in the safety of this process. Due to the unpredictability of weather conditions, fire management teams often don't know if a burn will take place until the day before it's scheduled to occur. Specialists must make sure that the weather conditions are near perfect before ever laying fuel to flame.
If the humidity is too high, the fuels won't burn. If it's too low, it'll burn too hot and too hard to control the fire. Same with the winds. The winds, you want some wind, but not a whole lot of wind. You want wind to move the fire, but you don't want a lot of wind to blow the fire across your line. The air temperature has to be just right. If the air temperature is too hot, then you get too much of a kill, and you kill too much that you want to burn.
Another key safety tool implemented by fire management teams is the use of control lines. These are lines created around the objective burn site that leave only material that cannot catch fire around the burn perimeter.
By doing the control lines with either the bulldozer or using a natural road, what we're doing is we're taking the fuels away. So the fire burns up to that dirt, because dirt doesn't burn, and the fire goes out because you're taking the fuel aspect away from it. Now if we use water to extinguish the fire, we're taking the heat away from the fire.
Many people may think that setting an entire forest on fire sounds counterproductive to the regrowth of habitat and rejuvenation of an ecosystem. But prescribed burns are actually incredibly beneficial to the surrounding environment.
The positives of the burn are you get new growth, you get browse and cover for the deer and the animals. Any trees that die are usually still standing, so you have bug habitat for turkeys, for quail, for deer. If you look at an area that's never been burned, it looks sort of like a pine tree desert, where there's just pine trees and no new growth underneath of it. Where if you look at some of this stuff, if you come back in 6 months, it looks like it's got warm season grass, it's got cover, it's got all kinds of habitat for animals, and a lot of different plants are able to grow because we open up the canopy to let more light in, and we burn off the duff layer so that the seeds can get down to the soil to germinate.
These prescribed burns may seem extreme at first sight, but the benefits to the ecosystem are quite clear. This is just our way of mimicking Mother Nature's natural process to help preserve and enrich the habitats that are so valuable to us. When the smoke clears and new grasses begin to bloom, there will only be a flickering memory of the sight of fire on the shore.